Hi guys, I hope you're doing well. In today's video, we are going to understand a little bit better to explore what each column of the orbit NTP show command means. Before we start, it's important to understand that the NTP service is very important for the application of senhasegura. NTP will basically configure the operating system's time, a time that will be used by several of the application's functionalities, mainly the token and multi-factor authentication validations. So when you register a 2FA, a multi-factor authentication, both in the registration of this token and in its validation, the whole process is done based on the operating system time. So very likely when you go and validate your token and you get an error message saying that the token doesn't match, very possibly your cell phone time is wrong, or the time of the senhasegura application is incorrect. And when I say incorrect, all it takes is a few different seconds for this to happen. So sometimes senhasegura is 20 seconds early or late, enough for the token not to be successfully validated. Generally, these are the two scenarios that can happen when you get a message saying that the token doesn't match. In our case, we will of course focus on the senhasegura time, especially on how we can confirm that our NTP servers are providing true time to our server. Well, on our YouTube channel, you already have a video on how to register NTP servers, whereas here in this video, it will be about troubleshooting only, to understand what each of these columns mean, okay? The orbit NTP --show command is an abstraction of the NTPQ-P command, okay? We can see that the output is quite similar. And let's understand what each column means. The column remote obviously is our time source. So here in my case, I have registered some public NTPs. And our remote is each NTP server whose time we are querying. You can see here on the left side of each name, we have symbols, right? And what do these symbols mean? Well, the asterisk symbol is the main server that we are getting the time from, right? The server with the plus sign is the candidate. So it's like a trusted source for NTP as well. So this NTP service recognizes that this remote is trusted and it's also being used for the time synchronization. But there is a difference. The asterisk symbol is the main one, while the plus symbol is a reliable server that is also being used, but is not the main one. We also have the minus sign. The minus sign means that it's a good source of synchronization too, but that it's not being used as a source of time because there are other remotes, other destinations with more solution, with more resilience in the time search. That's the difference between these three symbols, so it is important that when you're troubleshooting, you know if there is an asterisk, right? The main server in the end pool of your command, of orbit command --show, because it will mean that it's the main server, and then consequently, based on this main server that you identify, you can do the troubleshooting of the other columns that we will talk about now. Skipping to the ST. The ST is nothing more than the level of the hierarchy tree that your server is. So, I've separated an image here so we can understand a little better. The ST is a chain of servers, right? So we can have from 0, which is represented here, up to 16, where 0 is the root and 16 are the servers that are not on reliable time and so on. Here in our example, we have our servers in ST2 and ST1. This means that they are in chain 2 or chain 1 of our hierarchy tree, right? The closer to 0, the closer to the root, greater the time accuracy, and the further away, the lower the time accuracy. Well, now we have our when. Our when means how many seconds have passed sends the last query to our time server. The po means the frequency in seconds that the source is queried. And the reach will mean, in a matter of seconds, whether there was success or failure in the last query. Actually, the last 8 queries. So when the status is 377, it means that the last query was successful. I mean the last 8 queries. Now there are other scenarios where it could be 375, which means scenarios of failure, okay? Well, from here we have the 3 main columns. The delay column means the delay or round-trip time in milliseconds of the packets to the time source. So the delay is going to mean what the name already says. So it's the delay of the data packets sent to the time source. The offset, I'd say, is one of the most important columns, which is basically the offset or how much the local clock of the operating system needs to be advanced or delayed by milliseconds to be equal to the time of our source. So here in my case, we have this server that's not being used because it has the minus sign, because the offset is much larger compared to the others, right? Now our main server is already at a good value of 0.34. This means that this value is the value that our local clock needs to move forward or backward to match the time source. And the jitter is the variation in milliseconds between the measured offset differences to the time source. Well, these are the meanings of each column. Based on this information and based on the execution of the command, you can identify whether there is any likely problem with your NTP server. It is very important that your NTP server is a server that provides you with a reliable time, because as I said, the time that is in the senhasegura application will be used for different functionalities, mainly the token. So if your token is not validated, the first thing you have to validate is the server's time. And if you use NTP, it is going to be based on those commands. Thanks for your time.